Hello and welcome to the Enterprise Talk Conversation Series, a peer knowledge resource by the CXOs for the CXOs. Now to our host, Kanika Goswami.
Hi, we welcome you to a podcast on stage with enterprise thought leaders. My name is Kanika Goswami and I'm the managing editor of On.Media's B2B enterprise technology publications. We have engaging conversations with industry leaders and experts, which reach about 1.3 million business leaders worldwide through our audience. The ETSI TS 104223, Securing Artificial Intelligence Baseline Cybersecurity Requirements for AI Models and Systems, is a new specification that offers reliable and implementable cybersecurity guidance and delivers protection for end users. The specification details transparent, high-level principles and provisions for securing artificial intelligence. It provides stakeholders in the AI supply chain with a robust set of baseline security requirements, helping to protect AI systems from evolving cyber threats. This specification was developed by ETSI Technical Committee, that is a TC, on securing artificial intelligence, which is SAI. Today we have with us Scott Cadzow. He's the chair of ETSI's Technical Committee for Securing Artificial Intelligence. We'll discuss with him why security must be a core requirement, not just in the development phase, but throughout the life cycle of the system. Scott, welcome to our podcast today. It's great to have you here with us.
Thank you.
I hope I have done the introduction correctly, because does it sound right for you?
It sounds, yeah. The important thing is that AI is something we have to be very aware of and make sure that it fits properly into our technical lives and our social lives and everything else.
Right. So a little introduction of Scott. He has over 25 years of experience of becoming a recognized standards development expert, primarily for security standards in a number of international standard development organizations, which include the ETSI, the ITUT, and the ISO. In ETSI, Scott has been the rapporteur for a large number of technical bodies and has acted as an expert to a number of specialist task forces. He has also served as a chair of the ETSI IT Security Group and a vice chair of each of the ETSI projects, which we can elaborate, but I don't know if they're so relevant here. You are a recognized expert in cybersecurity and its application across a number of technologies addressing core aspects of risk analysis, methods, and applications. In many cases, breaking new ground for ETSI in domains such as AI, virtualized environments, and quantum migration. Is there something you want to speak to us about the ETSI as such? A little bit about what it is?
Yeah, just to bring out ETSI or ETSI, I mean, we call it ETSI because it rolls off the tongue slightly easier, is one of the three European mandated standards bodies. So we are mandated and allowed to produce formal regulations or formal standards in support of regulation. But we're very much a member-driven organization. We're very much a global organization. Although we are mandated for Europe, we believe very much that standards set in Europe apply globally. So if you look at our big success stories, the GSM cellular world is largely driven through ETSI as part of a large partnership project. We have successes in various areas, and we've moved standards away from, I'd say, conventional telecoms. There's no such thing as telecoms anymore. We have everything's connected to everything else, and that means we've moved our standards effort into a whole set of new areas. So we've moved into, as you mentioned, areas like virtualization. How do you virtualize a network? How do you get rid of specialized hardware and move to general purpose hardware? That moved us into the software domain, and now we're seeing the impact of data, which we've just created a new body in ETSI called data, which deals with the data lifecycle. And if you look at AI is obviously a fairly advanced software topic, but it applies everywhere in the telecoms world. It applies everywhere in the connected world. And so our role is largely to bring these new technologies, anticipate new technologies, and make sure when they get to the market or get to be used by the market, that they are clear, simple, interoperate, that we can build markets from, that we can build safe systems from, secure systems, protect users, protect businesses. So ETSI is very much in that focus. In that case, we bring in members from, I don't know, every nation on the earth, I think. There's 190 nations on earth. I think we've got maybe 150 of them represented in ETSI. We have somewhere in the region of 900 members from the very largest of our global companies, the large operators. We have Deutsche Telekom, we have Orange from France. We have the largest manufacturers. We have the Chinese, we have the Japanese, we have the Koreans, we have the Europeans, and of course we also have government. We have good representation and good interaction with government without being governed by government, which is quite nice. We have very much technical expertise is our lead, and I think that's where we're going to go forward. So hopefully that gives you a view of what ETSI is.
Yes, so thank you so much for that. I'm sure pretty valuable bits of information for the audience here. So my first question to you is the increasing adoption and proliferation of AI in enterprise brings with it some unique challenges. What, in your opinion, do CIOs need to be ready for to be able to meet them effectively?
Simply, CIOs need to be ready for new, anything that's novel, anything that's new, they have to be ready for. They have to anticipate new technology. They have to be ready to prepare for it. So if we focus on AI, it's quite a disruptive technology. It's given new meaning to what data is. It's got new interpretation of how we view the world. We can't rely on a clear separation of human and machine anymore. Machines now do tasks that we used to think were fairly human. Humans now do things that machines do to an extent. So that merging and blurring of the boundary between what is human, what is machine, has to be fitted into the enterprise. It has to be fitted into our living space. And businesses and CIOs in particular should not be distinct and separated from the real world. They have to bring the real world to their business. That means they have to be very much more aware of risk. They have to be much more aware of the technology that's coming to their business. They have to be much more aware of the demands of the market. The market is now going to be differently led. It's not always going to be led by the large organizations of bringing the latest technology, because the openness of things like AI in particular allow people to develop new ideas independently of their organizations. The data that organizations are putting forward and putting out to the market is used in new ways. So the challenge to both the member organizations, to the CIO type level, at the C level of organization in general, is to be much more aware of the risk they're taking. They can't just bring in a new technology. I mean, it's the whole concept of, to some extent, when we did the original, and if I say original as if I was around, when the Industrial Revolution started in the late or mid 19th century, there was a massive, over reliance on technology very quickly. So people put machines in where they hadn't really thought it through, and it took a number of years before we actually found effective uses for technology. And the problem we're having is we're repeating that history. We're actually using technology in areas where maybe it's not the right thing to do because there's hype. Like you're pushed towards this. So one of the things that CIOs and C-level management has to do is step back and say, do we need this? And what do we need it for? Rather than just following the hype cycle. So one of the things we're trying to do as a standards body is give rationality to that debate. Give them an understanding of what the issues are, what the problems are, how you would then integrate those new technologies into your environment. So it's not just developing new technology, it's giving essential guidance to how to apply that new technology. So we are not developing particularly AI software, we're not developing AI models, we're not developing AI methods. What we're saying is take this technology, AI, understand what it's for, understand what you want to get from it, understand how to measure its effectiveness, measure its usefulness, understand how it's going to be integrated, and then build it into your system as if it was any other piece of technology. In the same way as that you don't just, I'll take an analogy. If you take a football team, you take your your Sunday football club. If they brought in a Diego Maradona, that's my kind of age, or some new top player, they're not going to make a big difference because the rest of the team isn't of their capability. So bringing in a new technology without preparing to how to integrate it is not going to work. And so what we're trying to do is give you an understanding of what impact this technology is going to have on your environment and how do you make that work so that your environment improves. And what we want to do in general in technology is make sure the technology we're developing, the technology we're bringing to market has a purpose, has an impact, has an effect. And that effect can be measured, can be realized, can be improved on, but ultimately we want to make our lives better. We're wanting disruptive technologies to be disruptive by making things better, and the post-disruption state to be harmonious. That sounds really nice. So yeah, moving forward, using technology effectively, understanding problems, moving ahead. So I think that kind of covers where we're going. So back to you.
Right. So while you are guiding enterprises to choose the right technologies, the relevant technologies, and using them only if required, if you were to recommend tools which would protect enterprise sector from the biases or the other challenges of artificial intelligence, what would you advise them to adopt?
Well, I'm not going to talk too much about specific tools. What you have to do is it's not about tools. In fact, it's not even about the software. It's about your attitude towards it. So making sure you govern properly what you're doing. So don't bring information into your business which is not relevant for your business. If people are trying to abuse the information from your business, understand what they're using that information for. So it's largely a case of what we've identified in the TS you mentioned at the start is a set of very simple principles. Make sure you understand before you start. Do the development, do the deployment properly. But once you've deployed it, it's not to be left sitting there. You've got to actively manage it. You've got to actually involve yourself with it. The same way as most organizations do some checks and balances on their staff to make sure their staff are properly managed. Essentially, you're asking AI often to do the same kind of responsibilities and roles that some of your staff members will take. They represent you as an organization. So if you're not managing that, if you're not governing it, if you're not maintaining it, correcting it when it goes wrong, guiding it to go and do better all the time, then you're not using the tool effectively. And the difference between AI and possibly any other tool we've had in the past is that the tool is on day one is going to be different on day two. It's going to be different on day three because it learns about things, it improves itself. So you've got the potential to have a highly capable tool that is going to change itself to better fit it to its environment. But if you're not guiding that change, then that change will run away from you, and then you'll get caught out. So it's all about governance, understanding, knowledge, and feedback, using the tool to give you advice as well, and then using that advice to drive the tool. Do not let it get away from you. Otherwise, you will end up with the kind of problems that Microsoft had a few years ago with their chatbot that became, within a few hours, it became incredibly dangerous or disruptive or just a bad piece of information. And the problem there is largely because the material that you've taught it from, what it's learned from, has been largely unguided, and the use of it guides it again. So if you ask, I'm going to take a fairly controversial example. If you take the Bible as an example, the Christian, normal Islamic Jewish Bible, and you ask about the good stuff in it, it'll tell you to be nice to everyone else, be the nice Jesus type figure that talks about love and peace and all the rest. But you also can look at other parts of the Bible and it creates genocide. It wipes out things. You've got the plague of locusts. You've got the floods. Those are horrible things. So you can focus on the wrong thing. You can promote the wrong thing with base material. So you've got to be very careful about guiding the material you're using, making sure that it's used appropriately. And if you don't do that, you'll end up with problems. But those problems are, to some extent, I'm going to suggest they are exaggerations of common human behavior. So if you see the things that happen on generative AI, which is one of the big talking points in AI, and how it's all dreadful and it manipulates people, people manipulate people, have been manipulating people since the dawn of mankind. And so what the software has done is allow that to be much more pervasive, much more subtle, but it's a human trait that we've developed. Whereas if you look at the other aspects of AI, and there's lots of ways of using AI. We can do it for image recognition, we can do it for in autonomous vehicles. We can use AI to recognize when we're going to hit something and apply the brakes appropriately. Those things are really useful. So what we've got to concentrate and exaggerate is the usefulness and correct against the misuse. And that's not a problem of AI, that's a problem of how users and people interact with it. They tend to use tools badly. If you think of sport, you can use a cricket bat to play cricket really effectively. I'm a Scotsman, I know nothing about cricket, by the way. But you can also use a bat as a tool, as a weapon. So in the wrong hands with the wrong intent, any tool can be bad, but most tools, when used properly, can be very good. And we need to drive people to use the tool properly, and then make the bad use exceptional. And when it's exceptional, you can recognize that exception and you can pick it up and start to correct that bad behavior. And so what we're trying to do, again, coming back to get the principles right, get the governance ideas right, get the knowledge right, understand why you're using it, and then understand when it's being misused, because you suddenly recognize it's easy to recognize because it's not doing what you expect. Same way as if your staff in your normal organization are doing something which is contrary to the rules of the organization, you pick that up because you're monitoring what people do. Monitor your software, monitor your systems and processes, and use of tools.
Right. So in a nutshell, it is less about technology, more about governance and strategy of how it is to be used. Right.
Yeah.
So we'll quickly touch upon one more aspect of cybersecurity because of AI adoption. It plays both ways. AI tools have made cyber risks worse. AI tools also provide better preemptive and predictive tools for CISOs to be able to identify risk before the attacks happen. So complex data management for AI systems makes them more vulnerable to data attacks. What else do you see as the other big risk factors apart from data management that AI requires?
Well, there's algorithm management, I think, is a large part of the process. One of the things that we're seeing with AI is the data doesn't change very much. It's how you weight that data. So you give different weighting to data. That's why we see bias. You see some data as being more important than others. In some cases, that's perfectly valid. I mean, if I'm doing female medicine or medicine and looking at, I'll take an example like sickle cell anemia. If your database is full of white males, you're not going to pick up trends in sickle cell anemia. So you've got to weight in favor of Asian populations. You've got to weight in favor of Afro-Caribbean populations for that thing. So bias is not always bad, but you have to understand where you're applying it. Looking for cervical cancer in male populations, kind of silly thing to do. Males don't have cervixes. We don't have that problem. So you have to apply effective bias. So the kind of headline grabbing issues that AI has bias is not always the right thing. What you have to do is understand what the application is for and weight it accordingly. So the data might not be wrong. In fact, the data is likely to be fine because you're using large data sets for multiple things. But you have to apply your biases correctly. You have to know why you're doing that. And one of the things we're kind of focusing on is transparency, explicability, explaining why you're doing this. What is the purpose of this AI? So if you think of your doorbell camera, I live somewhat in a semi-rural environment, so we have different animals coming into the garden at night, and they cause a fair degree of damage. So I'd like to know what kind of animals are causing most damage, so I can find some way to counter it. So I will train my image recognition software. If I take a normal rural urban environment, it's probably recognizing cats, dogs, maybe urban foxes. But once you get into the countryside, it has to recognize badgers, it has to recognize stoats and weasels and various other things, because they all cause different problems. And the danger is that if you don't have that data in your data set, you'll misrecognize something. You'll misrecognize a cat as a dog, or a badger as a dog, or something strange. So you've got to build the right data, you've got to build the right weighting, and that takes time. But you also have to know why you're doing it. So if you don't know why you're putting this data into the data set, if you don't know why you're putting that weighting in, then the data is not useful. So what we're trying to push people forward to, and is a large part of your pre-development and your deployment, is tell people what it's for. Why are you putting this AI in? Is the AI to recognize there's a cat and a dog? Is the AI there to recognize a friend rather than an enemy, a friend or foe type of thing? So if you're got a Ring type door camera on your house, it might open the lock if it's if a member of your family turns up at the door. It may choose to make sure the door's locked when it's somebody unknown. Those are fairly reasonable things. You can explain that to people. You can explain why the data's there, how you gather that data. And if you aren't able to do that, then you are more likely to be subject to some form of vulnerability because you haven't understood what you're using the data for. So it's like, as I said at the start, any form of technology should only be used when you know what it's for. Don't just pick up a piece of technology without knowing what you're using it for. And this is particularly true for corporates. Like if you're intending to use AI to give, let's say, a customer response thing, your chatbots you have as customer service, make sure they know what they're doing. Make sure you know why you're doing it. Make sure you know what the data set is. If there's any issues with it, monitor it to make sure that you're recognizing that and picking it up. You can't afford to insult your customers because the data it gave was wrong. So if you don't do that, you're letting yourself down. So yes, there are vulnerabilities. There are vulnerabilities with bias. There's a misunderstanding, but you can eliminate those by properly asking the questions. Why are you using this? What are you using it for? Who's the intended audience? When are you looking at it? When you're reviewing it? All those kind of simple questions. We can now capture those as the Kipling questions that come from a Kipling story from the late 19th century, I guess, where it's all about who, what, why, where, when, how. Asking those questions of anything you see in front of you will give you the confidence to know that it's doing the job you're asking of it. And if you don't know that it's doing the job you're asking of it, don't use it. And that's kind of fundamental. So our guidelines, the ones that are in the TS we've just published, are very much about that. Make sure your staff know about AI risk. Make sure your deployers know about AI risk. Make sure they know that it's deploying software that is likely to change over its lifetime. Make sure you monitor that through the lifetime. Make sure you get rid of it at the end of its lifetime in a safe way. All those things are kind of common sense. And unfortunately, we need to teach people common sense. And I think that's what we're trying to do.
Right. And I think we have to thank you for your time and the insights that you've shared. Scott, my questions are over, and really appreciate you giving us your time today.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for being with us. Please do follow us on social media for regular updates and new content.